Hey guys, Kevin, it's me, another movie guide to my 31 days of horror movie reviews, and this movie reviewing is very interesting because as you guys know, I'm trying to watch some of the Universal classic monster movies, and this is one of the ones that I really wanted to see. In fact, this movie is considered the greatest, the first great horror movie of all time. Like most people consider it to be the first great horror movie ever. And that's something that definitely made me very interested, and that is the 1925 silent horror classic, The Phantom of the Opera. Now, The Phantom of the Opera, obviously, I think everyone's seen some sort of variation of this movie. Whether it's the musical, whether it's the film of Robert Englund. The only one I had seen up till now was the musical with Gerard Butler and Emmy Rossum, and I hate it, honestly. I hate that movie. I'll tell you guys, it's real simple. Here's why I hate that movie. Because Gerard Butler is terrible as the Phantom. Patrick Wilson is not very good as Raoul. They should not have given the Phantom, they should not have given a baritone a tenor part, and Raoul should not be given a baritone part. He should not be given, you should not give a tenor a baritone part. It just doesn't work at all, and I definitely, did not like that. I thought that really ruined the movie. It's really overlong, it's really boring, and I really don't like the movie. I've seen productions of the musical. The musical is really good, but I really want to see a different variation of that, and that's exactly what I wanted from the 1925 version. Which I was really hoping would be something great. And again, I've never seen a silent film before, but I have to say, and what I really want to do with this movie is take away from the fact that it's a silent movie and that's old, and just put myself in the position that it's 1925, the horror movies aren't really that common, and I'm seeing this for the first time, and it really is something amazing. And I have to say that The Phantom of the Opera really is an amazing movie. It really is fantastic how great this movie is, how well it turned out, and I'm surprised with how much this movie was able to get away with. Now, if you guys don't know the plot of The Phantom of the Opera, which you should, because I'm pretty sure everyone knows some variation of the plot, I will say the plots. Actually doing this review for a second time because I never talked about the plot, and I figured I should. Basically, there is this opera house, there is this Paris opera house, basically, and, this phantom haunts the house, causing murder and mayhem in an attempt to make the woman he loves, a star. And basically one day, the main woman who sings at the opera house, Carlotta, she quits, basically, and Christine, because she's terrified of what's going on, and Christine basically takes her place, and the Phantom starts to get obsessed with her, and when she meets the Phantom, she basically has to make a choice of, does she actually want to be with the Phantom, or does she just want to let everyone kill him and see him as truly this monster? And that basically is the plot of Phantom of the Opera, which I've always found very interesting. I always really do love the plot of this movie. Now, something that definitely very much impressed me with this movie is the acting, because, again, this is a silent movie. They didn't actually have dialogue. They had title cards, but they had to convey emotion without actually saying anything, which I think is definitely very hard to do, and for the most part, I think everyone really does a great job of that, especially Lon Chaney as a Phantom of the Opera, who I feel is really iconic in this role. I'm pretty sure when people think the Phantom, they really think of this picture right here, which truly is terrifying. But something I love about Lon Chaney is the depth he gives to the Phantom. I mean, the Phantom is a great character, really, because the Phantom, the whole movie, he's not really a monster. He's doing all these things to get closer to the people that he loves, and he has obsessions with certain women, and he really wants to be with them, and he's not really this monster. It's just his look and the way, his stature has made him a terrifying appearance. And is he pretty terrifying in this movie? Oh yeah, he gave me goosebumps several times in this movie, definitely. I was quite scared of his appearance, but that's the point. He did a very good job, but I also really sympathize with him because he's just trying to connect with these people. He's not trying to hurt them. He wants to connect with them, he wants to form a bond with them, and he wants them to love him like he loves them, which they don't, but he really wants them to, and it's really sad, but, that's really what's going on with him. I thought he really did a great job, I have to say, in this role. He really was fantastic, and especially for a silent movie, he really did an amazing job. Mary Philbin, as well as Christine, I thought was really great. Something I really love about Christine as a character is, one, the innocence of her. She portrays the innocence of Christine perfectly, and that's something I think everyone needs to portray in these movies, is that Christine is a very innocent character. She's just a chorus girl in this opera house. She's not really much else than that, and she's forced to become this star, and she still is just as innocent, and when she meets the Phantom, she starts to become very curious, and you can see in the movie that she's just very curious, and all the things she's doing, she's not necessarily afraid of the Phantom when she sees him. She's kind of just more startled and observant and wants to find out more about him, which is very interesting. I really loved about her character. She really did a great job. She was very good. A bit over the top at times, but again, that really does go with the time, and I can't really say too much about that. So for what she did, she was very good, and I definitely thought she did a very good job. The person I didn't think was too good was Norman Curry as Ral. I didn't think he was really that good in the movie. I thought he was a little bit over the top at times and kind of just full of himself. I wasn't a huge fan of his character. I liked him more in other versions, but I thought for what he had to do in the movie, he was pretty good. He's not in the movie too much, so I can't really blame him too much, but, you know, his character I didn't think was as good as he could have been, but I thought the bond between them over, you know, him and Christine were really good, but again, I can't really complain about him being over the top because that was the time. That's just how it was back then. You know, it was really over the top. And Arthur Edmund Carraway, I thought was really interesting as a character of Leto. Leto was a very interesting character because I've never seen him in any other Phantom production. He is someone that has seen the Phantom since he broke out of prison, and he's the one to track down the Phantom, and you're really rooting for him to get the Phantom. Even though the Phantom, obviously, you care about him, you're still rooting for him to get him, which I found very interesting, and he definitely did a very good job. And also, Mary Fabian as Carlotta is great in this movie. She's so funny. She's, of course, full of herself, and she's very funny to watch, and I definitely really love seeing her. But an interesting twist they did in this movie that I haven't seen in other Phantom movies is that the Phantom is first in love with Carlotta, then he's in love with Christine, which I found very interesting, and I definitely really love that. And especially this being the first Phantom of Opera adaptation, I definitely really like that. And it's something that I don't think I've ever seen in productions now, but I think it was pretty cool the way they did that then, and that's something I want. Just little different variations like that. That's something I definitely really love in this movie. Also, Christine never really loves the Phantom in this version, I have to say. You know, she's more like she's kind of just obsessed with him and wants to know more about him, and is more just terrified of him, doesn't really know what to do. And I definitely thought that was very great with her character, and that, again, that's another change that I really liked. Now, the directing by Robert Julian is nothing short of extraordinary. He really did an amazing job with this movie. By the way, guys, I did forget to say, there are 3 versions of this movie. I watched the 1929 reissue version, which I'll talk about, but basically, Robert Julian, I think, just did fantastic job directing this movie, because, again, this was considered one of the first horror movies ever made, and this was at a time when horror movies really weren't that common, and it's understandable. I mean, obviously, audience members probably get freaked out, and he really did a great job at making this a truly terrifying, bleak, depressing movie. It is quite depressing, it is quite disturbing, and that's something I definitely really loved about his movies. He did a very good job with that. This was also at a time when they wanted to use, you know, I heard about this in a documentary on Frankenstein. When I watched Frankenstein, I watched a documentary on this. Universal Monsters Collection, what they wanted to do is take characters that were just everyday but had like these deformities and make us sympathize with them, and I think he did that very well in terms of directing. This was one of the first movies to do that, and I definitely thought his directing was very impressive here. I mean, just what the story is, The Phantom. This was 1925, at a time when violence, things like that, they weren't popular in those movies, and they weren't really known, and I was very impressed by his directing in that regard. That's something I definitely really enjoyed seeing. So his directing was really great. The screenplay of this movie is fantastic. My real only complaint with this movie, and it's not really a complaint, it's not really something that they could fix anyway, because that's just how it is. The movie is a bit dated. Because it's a silent film, it's not, I think, as effective or scary as it was back then. It is still scary. I was scared quite a few times in this movie, I will say that. In fact, of course, when they rip off, Eric's, you know, when they unmask the Phantom, it is quite terrifying. I will admit that. His look is pretty scary. When you first see it in the movie, it doesn't look scary when you're just looking at it, but when you first see it in the movie, you know, when he has that mask on, then when she rips it off, it's quite scary. I mean, just imagine seeing that. It probably would be quite a terrifying experience, and I think I did a very good job, you know, conveying that. I definitely really like that. But something else I definitely was very impressed by, like I said, was the screenplay. I mean, the screenplay is very interesting. The way they build up the Phantom throughout the movie, it takes about, I'd say, 30 minutes to really actually meet the Phantom, and I definitely really love that. I mean, the way they build him up as this terrifying creature really makes you scared for his character, and really makes his character, I think, all the worth the while, definitely. I definitely really like seeing that. And we do see little appearances of him here and there, but mostly we see his shadow, we see the things he's doing, and it's quite quite scary, and I really like that. And I think as well, the movie definitely gets a lot more interesting when he eventually does take Christine, kidnap Christine, and she has to make this choice. You're not really sure what she's actually going to do in this movie. I definitely really love that, especially the climax of this movie. I really got into, I have to say. I was surprised by how into it I got, but the climax of this movie is truly something great, and maybe one of my favorite climaxes of old movies in general. I think it's a really great climax, I have to say. I definitely really loved it. Um, Cinematography is so impressive here because this was 1925. They didn't have much in terms of makeup. They didn't have really that advanced makeup. They didn't obviously have technology back then. So what they were able to do is just incredible. I don't know how Lon Chaney actually looked in real life. But this makeup is just incredible. I mean, the way they made him look terrifying, I would imagine that if he were to walk around, like, with that makeup on, like, around Hollywood, he would obviously scare everyone, and I think they did a very good job with that. I really loved his makeup in the movie. They did a bang-up job with it, and it really still looks so impressive today. It probably, I think, is the best the Phantom's ever look. I mean, the Phantom in the musical movie, literally looks like he has a bad sunburn. This is something terrifying. This looked like someone with a deformity, and that's something I definitely really loved about him. He looks truly terrifying and truly someone that you don't want to mess with, and I really did love that. Now, the score. The one I listened to, like I said, was the musical score by the LA Orchestra, plus Gaylord Carter's famous theater organ score. And I will say, each one of these versions, they're pretty much the same, except they're just, like, have different millimeters. Like, 1925 is 6 millimeter, 1929 is 20 frames per second, and 1929, reissued is 24 frames per second, 78 minutes. That's the one that I watched, at least. And I think the score is fantastic this movie because you have to remember back then scores were just that. They were scores. I mean, when you hear the word score, you think of, like, it's already done in the movie, but no, that's not what this was. They were called silent films for a reason. They were just that. They were silent films. They would play the score live, and you really get that feel in this movie. The feel that the score was done after this was made is really cool. I definitely really love that. I mean, most of the score is just played on this organ, but it still gives you that suspenseful vibe, and the music, the da 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 da, that's quite haunting and quite sinister, and I think perfectly gets us into the movie, and I really was impressed by the score. I wasn't expecting to be as impressed by the score as I was, but I found the score to be one of the best parts of the movie by far. I really loved the score of this movie, and I think it truly is something great. Definitely something I loved was the score. The editing as well. Again, the movie, also, I'd say the cinematography. There are parts of this movie where the color palettes are a bit different. I mean, there's some things in this movie that are quite groundbreaking. About 20 minutes into the movie, there's about 20 minutes in the movie where there's a masquerade scene, and it's in color, and it's really impressive. I still think it looks amazing today. Just the fact they were able to do that in 1925 is amazing, and this was 1929 when they did this. It's fantastic the way they did that. It looks amazing, and I was so impressed by how it looked. It feels, and it works in the masquerade scene. That's what's so impressive, that it works so well in that masquerade scene because you get that, colorful feel, and it just, plus it was a time they started to have color. I felt they wanted to experiment with it, and it really worked well here, and I definitely really love seeing that. The length of this movie, like I said, for me was 78 minutes. It was perfect. It was a perfect length. It didn't need to be any longer than it was. I thought it was, perfectly, the tone was, it was, they really got the story done very well. I didn't think anyone was really, you know, not utilized very well in this movie. I think everyone was used very well, and I think every plot point they really had in there perfectly. I didn't think the movie had to be any longer than it was. And the ending of the movie, I found quite shocking, definitely. I really loved the ending of the movie. I definitely thought it was very intense, and I didn't expect the end of the movie to be as crazy as it was, but it really goes very crazy very fast. And overall, guys, The Phantom of the Opera, 1925 version, is an amazing movie. I really do love it. And like I said, besides the fact that it is a bit dated, it does keep me from giving the movie an A+, but still, The Phantom of the Opera does get a 4.5 out of 5 or an A. It is one of the greatest horror films ever made. It is definitely going to go down as one of the most revolutionary films ever because it was made in 1925, but because it was a silent film. I know some of you might not want to see that, obviously, because silent films, I can understand they're annoying, they might be different, and I will admit to you guys, the first time I popped this in, it did feel a bit weird, to have a silent film, but I quickly got right into it. I quickly just got into the nature of the film, and I was like, alright, whatever, you know, this is what it is, and I just have to deal with it, and I was fine with that. I thought it was perfectly fine. And honestly, I would recommend you watch this version. It's probably the best version of the Phantom of the Opera that's out there. It's much better than the musical. I'm not saying the musical is bad. When the musical is great, it's great. I've seen amazing productions of it. I've seen one with Sierra Boggess on DVD. It's really something great. It's Sierra Boggess and what's his name? What's his name? He was in Les Mis. He was a star of it. I can't think of his name right now, but I think his name was Robert Carlyle. I think that was his name, but this movie is clearly something amazing. I definitely recommend you guys check it out because it truly is fantastic. And get the Blu-ray as well because you get 3 different choices, and I would honestly pick the 1929 one. But that is my review, Phantom of the Opera. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you guys saw this movie you have seen. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this movie. Because the fact that, you know, it is a silent film. This is not the only silent film we'll be watching. There's one other I will be watching. I'm sure you guys are very anxious to hear. Well, you will be anxious to hear my thoughts on. And that's just my review. Hope you enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for another movie review. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.